Hello, and this is Delia again. I'm reading The Vampire Diaries, The Struggle. I'm now on chapter 2, part 1. An unnatural twilight hung over the abandoned graveyard. Snow blurred Elena's eyes, and the wind numbed her body, as if she stepped into a current of ice water. Nevertheless, stubbornly, she did not turn around toward the modern cemetery and the road beyond it. As best as she could judge, Wickery Bridge was straight in front of her, and she headed for that. The police had found Stefan's abandoned car by Old Creek Road. That meant he'd left it somewhere between Downing Creek and the woods. Elena stumbled on the overgrown path through the graveyard, and she kept moving head down, arms hugging her light sweater to her. She had known this graveyard all of her life, and she could find her way through it blind. By the time she crossed the bridge, her shivering had become painful. It wasn't snowing as hard now, but the wind was even worse. It cut through her clothes as if they were made of tissue paper and took her breath away. Stefan, she thought, and turned onto Old Creek Road. Trudging northward, she didn't believe what Damon had said. If Stefan were dead, she would have known. He was alive somewhere, and she had to find him. He could be anywhere out in this swirling whiteness. He could be hurt, he could be freezing. Dimly, Elena sensed that she was no longer rational. All her thoughts had narrowed down to one single idea: Stefan. Find Stefan. It was getting harder to keep to the road. On her right were oak trees, on her left the swift waters of Drowning Creek. She staggered and slowed, and the wind didn't seem quite so bad anymore. But she did feel very tired. She needed to sit down and rest for just a minute. As she sank down beside the road, she suddenly realized how silly she had been to go out searching for Stefan. Stefan would come to her. All she needed to do was sit here and wait. He was probably coming right now. Elena shut her eyes and leaned her head against her drawn-up knees. She felt much warmer now, and her mind drifted, and she saw Stefan, saw him smile at her. His arms around her were strong and secure, and she relaxed against him, glad to let go of fear and tension. She was home. She was where she belonged. Stefan would never let anything hurt her. Then, instead of holding her, Stefan was shaking her, and he was running the beautiful tranquility of her rest. She saw his face pale and urgent, his green eyes dark with pain. She tried to tell him to be still, but he wouldn't listen. "Elena, get up," he said, and she felt the compelling force of those green eyes willing her to do it. "Elena, get up, now! Elena, get up!" The voice was high and thin and frightened. "Come on, Elena, get up. We can't carry you." Blinking, Elena brought a face into focus. It was small and heart-shaped, with fair, almost translucent skin, framed by masses of soft red curls. Wide brown eyes with snowflakes caught in the lashes stared worriedly into her. "Bonnie," she said slowly, "what are you doing here?" "Helping me look for you," said a second lower voice on Elena's other side. She turned slightly to see elegantly arched eyebrows and an olive complexion. Meredith's dark eyes, usually so ironic, were worried now, too. "Stand up, Elena, unless you want to become an ice princess for real." Okay, so I'll read the next part in just a second.